Hey everybody, it's Jillian. So I just wanted to really do a lot more research on this inherited or acquired disease called Down syndrome because there's three types, which is very interesting that there's three types of Down syndrome. There's the trisomy 21, there is the mosaic, and those two are not inheritable. And then there is the translocation Down syndrome, which is the inheritable Down syndrome. And so, what would cause Down syndrome? Well, it's a mutation, it's an extra copy of a chromosome, whether it's an extra copy or two copies, three copies or two copies or one copy. And you can look and figure out which one has the copies. They all do. But something is triggering the body to make an extra copy. Well, what would trigger the body to make an extra copy? So this is where Kevin needs to put his thinking cap on and look at what we've already looked at, like what autophagy is, the disassembling of the mutated cells, and then what is cell regeneration? That's when you have specific nutrition, but even if you're not on J juice, and you're out there in the community off of J juice, you are replicating cells, but you're replicating mutated cells, which is sustaining your mutations, your cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So somehow these Down syndrome people are having their chromosomes under attack. There's making an extra copy. Okay, now this is where the titer tests, this is where you guys can now look at your titer tests and then look at the science behind the three types of Down syndrome. And I've already kind of drawn some connections so you can do more research on the people that you know that have Down syndrome. And it seems that amino acids and hormones that are now, that are mutating, like the actin and the myosin proteins that control muscular development. Okay, so I can do research like that, like so fast, because it's just asking the questions and looking for the answers and drawing conclusions and then looking for the connections and then already taking in what I already know and applying it. So this is what I came up with. So yeah, I figured out, okay, with Down syndrome, three types: mosaic, translocation, trisomy 21, extra copies up. Translocation, of course, is something that is inherited. I had to figure out, well, what did the parents, what did they suffer? What mutations did they have to contribute to their Down syndrome child? Well, it seems that there are some translocation diseases, chromosomal diseases that are in cancer, certain kind of cancers, and leukemia. It seems that the blood and bone marrow have a lot to do with some of these mutations. So it seems that there is some pathogens that are creating antibodies that are then affecting the immune system to create antibodies to then go after specific proteins in the body that do elicit a specific disability. Okay? So once we kind of know what is causing Down syndrome, then we can see that, yes, there are ways to then balance out the hormones, the antibodies, and the yeast so we don't have these types of mutations in future generations. But the parents do take a lot of the responsibility. Even though they may not have a translocation Down syndrome child, somehow the biochemistry in both the parents and the environment, and who knows what other belief system they have, then created the trisomy 21 as well as the mosaic, the ones that are non-inheritable. And so there could be like copper levels. I mean, I've seen here when I'm looking at, so I know my notes are really kind of crazy, but the serum levels, which this is where I was like, okay, I look at, what is causing Down syndrome, and then they give me the two things. They mention complement factor B, which is what contributes to the alternative pathways, and then the ceruloplasmin. So there's blood plasma having to do with this, right? And then, and there's a copper carrying protein in the blood, in addition to playing a role in iron metabolism. So there's some mutations and there's some stuff that is inhibiting or producing iron or keeping it in the body and not allowing it to release. So you have some heavy metal type of deficiencies, okay, or accumulations. And then, because there's like 29 proteins that are affecting the Down syndrome people, okay? So, so then you have complement factor B is a protein that in humans is encoded by the CFB gene. And this gene encodes complement factor B, a component of the alternative pathway of complement activation. So what do they do? It's activating the immune system to create antibodies, okay? And then of course amino acids have to do with this too, and all that, which are hormones. So the alternative pathways of the complement system is an innate component of the immune system, a natural defense against infection. So there is infections that are attacking these chromosomes from an imbalance that's causing these disturbances, which is causing then these manifestations of these different type of diseases. And so, yeah, when something is getting mutated, when the body sees there's a mutation in a chromosome, I'm thinking, this is my theory, that the body then wants to then regrow that cell. It's doing some kind of meiosis, mitosis, the splitting of the cell division, because they see that there's this chromosome that has like 400 genes are under attack. So what does it do in its mutated state? It makes a copy. I mean, why would you reproduce? Because you're making copies of yourself because your body is under attack, okay? So what proteins are affected by the Down syndrome? People who inherited an unbalanced translocation involving chromosome 21 may have extra genetic material from chromosome 21, which causes Down syndrome. Okay, and this is found in early fetal development, cell division, during cell division. See, okay. So when you're dealing with cell division, you're seeing that the body is recognizing stresses on the body, imbalances, pathogens, and then there are certain things like the proteins that make up these genes that also are involved with specific mechanisms of the body, like musculoskeletal, digestive processes, intestines. So then I saw the amino acids. So amino acids and hormones. Okay, so I look at what proteins are affected by Down syndrome, and then talk about amino acids somewhere. Okay, where do you see that? Okay, so amino acid hormones of levels of genes encoded of chromosome 21 in fetal Down syndrome. Okay, so amino acids, those are hormones. When people go to the store and they take amino acids, they're playing with their hormones. It's hormone replacement therapy. Don't do the taking in amino acids. Your body develops it based upon the balance and the type of nutrition that you bring in. So the main fibers, okay, so hormone function. All hormones are formed by amino acids. The main fibers are actin and myosin. Okay, hormonal function. All hormones are formed by amino acids. These are responsible for regulating all metabolic processes in the body. For example, a part of the growth hormone, TSH, in charge of regulating thyroid function, sex hormones. So now you're seeing there's an attack, there's a mutation based upon all the different elements that are being introduced into this baby's body from the mutations of the parents, as well as the environment and belief systems, are now impacting the growth and development of this baby. And chromosome 21, which has the muscular part of the system housed in that, and then making copies. And this is why you're seeing now deformities in the population, because of the mutations in their developmental process. Okay, so actin is a protein that is best known for role in muscle contraction. This is the main thing that's being affected in Down syndrome people. So these proteins are being affected by the mutations. Okay, and so actin is a protein and best known for its role in muscle contraction, where it works as a team with myosin. In addition, actin also plays a key role in structure and function of the small intestine. Okay, so and then bones Our bone mass, and bone geometry are influenced by the growth and muscle development in children and adolescents. Motor function in individuals with Down syndrome is characterized by hypotonia and hyperflexibility, which results in increase of joint dislocation and retarded motor skills. Okay, so they have motor issues because there's mutations in their developmental process. And so this is why, so now we have the ability we have the ability to reverse it if we can get our Down syndrome kids on a protocol that is going to now finally fix the mutations. This is why we have so many deformities in our society, because we have mutated people compounding and having children who are then mutated themselves. I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be offensive, but all of these mutations in the populations are now translating into disabilities. A human is not supposed to be defenseless. That is not part of the human life. Okay, life is supposed to protect itself, not be so dependent on somebody else protecting it. Okay, so this is huge, which means that, you know, if you want to have a baby and you have issues, get your issues resolved. If you have translocation type diseases like leukemia or blood disorders or all of that stuff, those are all triggers for potential, and they do genetic testing. They can look and see in your blood. They do titer tests. They can see if you have some kind of translocation or some kind of copper overabundance or deficiency or something that would contribute and possibly create a Down syndrome child. So all of you that do have kids that have major issues, go get a titer test. Look up the problem. Okay, when you get a titer test, it's going to tell you all the different diseases that you're testing positive for, and those diseases have a lot to do, of course, with all the 11 different systems in your body. You have 11 different systems with major specific functions, purposes. And then you'll see, oh, wow, I'm testing positive. All these antibodies for this, all these antibodies for that, all these antibodies for this. And this is going to translate into then future mutations, as well as what you're currently experiencing today. So if a parent gets a titer test today and they see exactly what they're dealing with, yeah, it's going to kind of see what it is you're going to deal with as far as your future children. Yeah, great 2 cents. You know, salamanders using morphogenic field to regrow their limbs. But yeah, if they're, I mean, energy blockages or hormone blockages. Okay, it really, I mean, when you want to take it to science and not so much like the energy side, which I get, but let's look at from the scientific point of view. When you have hormonal blockages, or when you have extra elements, or you have mutations, because you haven't fixed the mutations because you're not getting the proper nutrition, it's going to then translate in your children. Okay, so mutations is because of a person not properly taking care of themselves. And so you may not have the disease, you may not have Down syndrome, but guess what? Your mutations combined with your husband or your wife could potentially create a Down syndrome child, could potentially create a child that has progeria, leukemia, whatever. But now that you know this, now you have the wherewithal, possibly, but you have the potential to fix your mutations so your future children or your children today could actually reverse the issues if this was applied correctly and they understood why they would have to release the prostaglandin hormone, which is the pain hormone. And there are probably people with Down syndrome that are not going to do this, and that's okay. But now you know that there is specific characteristics in the parents, there's specific mutations in the parents, and as well as, because yeah, there's 3 different types, you know, one that's not inheritable, but hey, when you create a Down syndrome child, what are the characteristics? So if you have a mosaic or trisomy, Down syndrome child, do a titer test on that child. All of you that have Down syndrome kids and it's not translocation, or if they're translocation, you all compare your titer tests and you look for the patterns. You look for what types of antibodies you hold in you that's impacting your 11 different systems. That will tell you. And then you can see, oh, wow, I can go do J-juice and dilute those antibodies, fix the mutations, so this will not become a problem for that child, that adult, as well as any future generation of babies. Well, okay, Kevin, we'll meet you halfway with that. Yes, balance of hormones and not enough nutrients is the main cause. Energy blockages is a side of it. Okay. I mean, energy and hormones are the same thing in my world, but if you want to differentiate so you can create another conversation, I get it. But it is all the same stuff. Okay, energy and hormones are the same stuff. You can't see hormones like you can't see energy, but you can see the manifestation of them. I equate hormones and energy like the wind. You can't see the wind, but you can see the results and the consequences of how how elements impact the hormones and the energy forces that are out there. Okay, so I'll meet you halfway there. Okay, Kevin. But yes, we are speaking the same language, but you want to add an extra piece to then cater to the energy healing crowd. I understand, but it's still the same thing. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, so that's about an hour's worth of research. Not a big deal. I'm not going to write about this. I'm not going to say this in the book, or I'm not going to cover this in the book. But now you know that all of these different mutations and handicaps in our world are based upon the mutations and then the disease and the antibodies. And those antibodies, will create mutations, but you can keep those antibodies at bay and then you can fix the mutations. So everything is reversible out there if you understand what makes them happen to begin with. All right. And we've already covered the thing with the hormones and all of that. So, and then we know what strategic nutrition, we know that there are elements out there that will impact your hormones, impact and create mutations, which will then translate into mutated children. So there you go. Okay, so that will go for every single other disease that's out there. Go get a titer test, see what antibodies, and then do a comparison with your other counterparts out there that have the same issues. And you might see a very interesting pattern emerge. Do a titer test yourself on yourself as well as your kids, and you will see a pattern emerge. Start drawing pictures from these patterns. All right, bye.